and welcome to my series of conversations with Stalwarts in music. Today's episode is being partnered by Perpetual Bus Experiences. It's an artist representation company with three very basic but lofty goals. They're the launchpad for indie musicians, helping them leverage success by producing some of the most memorable experiences for music lovers. They also help generate funding for social causes and make sure that the entire process is smooth and people have a good time throughout the process. Be sure to check them out on www.perpetualbus.com. We have yet another sponsor, which is Wire Up Music Store, one of the finest music retail stores with state-of-art equipment, your one-stop solution for the best musical gears ranging from guitars, the ukulele and percussion, and a lot of classical instruments too. Do check out their Instagram page on wireup.india. My guest today is from the world of power metal and rock music. He's a singer-songwriter who has done some significant work with the guitar legend Yngwie Malmsteen. He embodies some of the highest aspirations any singer would have, joining forces with the heavy metal group Sons of Apollo, featuring Billy Sheehan, Mike Portnoy, Derek, and Bumblefoot. He has done some incredible work in the world of music. He's had a stint with Journey for a brief while. In 2012, Roger Taylor personally invited him to be part of the Queen Extravaganza, which was a wonderful tribute concert. He's also contributed as a singer for several many bands that include the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Talisman, and many more groups to sort of build bridges of sensibilities in the world of music. I'm delighted to welcome man of the hour, Jeff Scott Soto.
Hey, look, it works.
Hi. Wonderful. Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. It's an absolute pleasure to be doing this with you.
It's a pleasure for me. Can you tell me if the audio is okay?
Audio is great. I can hear you very well.
Great.
How about my end? Yeah, that works.
Yes, I'm using the same. We're using the same microphone. That's why.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
Yeah, I don't like to rely on the microphone on the computer because sometimes it can sound kind of crappy.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure. Being a vocalist, you know better.
Well, for these kind of things, to be honest with you, I'm really horrible with them. With anything that has to do with social media and live chats and all that stuff. I'm terrible with this technology, so I'm always relying on people like you. Hey, okay, you need to turn this down, turn this up, change the background, blah blah blah. So,
but you're doing great for now.
Yeah, great. As long as you can hear me and see me fine, that's all that matters.
Wonderful. As we start our agenda for today, could you perhaps draw an analogy as to the starting of a performance? How do you count down to the magical moment of the very first vocal note that you hit?
Oh, that is, it's a difficult question to answer because as a singer, and I'm going to be quoting and using some information from one of my heroes, Steve Perry. He recently said in an interview a few years ago, a singer has a love-hate relationship with their voice. A guitar player, keyboard player, drummer, any musician, they have ways to get through an entire show or a tour or performance. If they're sick, if their fingers aren't, if there's blisters or there's cuts on the fingers, if they're tired, whatever, a musician can always get through a show or a performance. If you have cuts, you can put a Band-Aid, you can wrap your fingers, and you can still get through a show. A singer doesn't have these luxuries. A singer doesn't have Band-Aids or wrappings for the throat. A singer doesn't have ways to hide the fact that their voice isn't working if it's not working properly. So when you're asking this question, it's always a sense of it's almost like you're praying. I hope that first note, I hope the first line is exactly how I want it to come out, because if it's not, it's going to get into your head and the whole performance is going to be swimming in your head and trying to work your way out of this hole that you just dug all of a sudden. And so, yeah, I am always conscious that the beginning of the show has to be as strong as the end of the show, because if in my head, if it's not, it's going to stay in my head, and I have to find ways to to get through it. And I hate thinking about a show. I like to naturally let a show happen organically.
Wonderful. How did the environment receive you when you started out in terms of your musical pursuit? Was it smooth?
Oh God, no. As living in Los Angeles, especially during that time, during the '80s, was a huge boom of interest. The Sunset Strip, the whole Hollywood thing was happening. Every band and artist was moving to Los Angeles to try to get a record deal. I happened to live here since I was 8 years old. We moved here from New York, so this was my backyard. This was my hometown, and I thought by being here, by being part of the scene since the beginning, even before I was trying to be an artist, I thought it was going to be a little easier to transition in getting a record deal, into getting interest, getting fans and followings. This is probably the hardest place, especially in the '80s, to get something going. Especially, it's crazy when you think of all the bands like Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue. All these bands came from different areas to Los Angeles to make it big, and from that, it created a kind of like a machine. But you just keep popping bands in, you keep grinding, and more albums and more acts are going out. But it was just as hard for the local bands like myself or local artists to get going here in LA. So for me, it was very difficult, but I'm so happy that my start happened in 1984 when I was 18 years old. I was just out of high school, and this was always in my head. I had a goal, I had an ambition. I used to write it on my folder in school, saying by the time I'm 16, I'm going to be in a band. By the time I'm 18, I'm going to be signed with a major label and with a major band. By 19, I'm going to be touring the world. By 21, I want a gold record. I had these goals already in my mind. This is what I wanted. So I fought so hard to get there. Some things I achieved and some things I didn't. But luckily, I was 18 when I joined Yngwie Malmsteen, and that was the beginning of my international career. And I haven't stopped since.
Speaking of the 80s, you did mention that there was a lot of stiff competition, right, in terms of music. Would you consider yourself competitive, and do you like to be in that place?
Um, the confidence, absolutely, I had, because I knew just from the people that I was surrounded with, or the bands that I was in, or even just my friends. I had a lot of support in terms of people saying that I had a great voice, or that I was unique on stage. I mean, I look at my performances now, or I hear my voice when I was younger, and I'm like, oh my God, how did anybody give me a chance? Because you naturally, you go back to your youth. You look at how you looked, you look at how you dressed, and you listen to how you sounded. And sometimes that doesn't agree with how you feel at the moment. You look at that and go, oh God, I was so terrible. But I must have had something there, because I had a lot of support, and I had a lot of praise and a lot of push from the people that I was associated with. So as far as I was concerned, I never I was never ready to take the word no as a defeat. I always took the word no as a strength. That okay, if it's a no now, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or I need to change or adjust something, so I get a yes next time. And that was always my motivation.
Wonderful. I was deeply moved by the track "King of Delusion" from your 2020 album. It's got a very dark and mysterious tone with some kind of inspiration from a classical composition, if I were to hear it. I mean, it's my in my personal opinion. During that phase,
Thank
I
you.
was I was clearly unaware of the deep conceptual spine upon which you guys went about creating that music. It's not essential to understand the design in order to appreciate the music that you guys put out, but it's quite intriguing when you learn and understand more about it for sure. Right? I'd like to
Yeah.
talk about some of the deeper underpinnings as to what's going on with the music in terms of the album.
Well, when it comes to the music, and I've done this for years now, I used to try to be included in the music writing of the things that I was a part of, until I realized it's always better for me personally to leave the songwriting to the instrumentalists, because they will create something musically that I can't even dream of doing, since I'm so limited in my guitar skills as a keyboard player. The last thing I want to do is write something that maybe is going to offend the musicians I'm working with, or maybe they're looking at, oh my God, this could have been so much better if I was able to do what I would do as a musician on this song. So as far as I'm concerned, I like to just my strength is on lyrics and melodies. I like to actually listen to a piece of music in Sons of Apollo is what you're talking about here.
Sure.
These guys, they take care of all the music. They take care of every single note, every beat, every hit. I don't interrupt in that world because that's not my world. When you have masters of their art, someone like Bumblefoot or Derek Sherinian or even Mike Portnoy involved in the music writing, there's no way Just Got Soto coming in with, well, I know how to play ding, 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 or a couple notes here and there. I'm going to leave the music to them. And once they give me a piece of music, then I can actually, that's where I create. That's when I get excited. That's when I start my world. And it's the process this is the same for a lot of other things I'm doing. I leave the music to others I'm working with, and my strength and my forte is the lyrics and the melodies, and that's where if if I listen to anything, I can even listen to a piece of music that we're all familiar with that we've listened to for 30 years. I can take out the vocal and I can rewrite it based on how I feel it. I feel it interpretation is in my ears and in my own views. And a song like King of Delusion was exactly that. You give me a piece of music, I listen to the moods, I listen to the valleys and the hills that are involved in a song like that. And this is what inspires me how to write or what to write about, the theme, the melodies, the hook, the part of the song that you need to grab the audience and hold them. All those things is where I kick in, once you give me a piece of music.
Lovely. You did mention about valleys and some sort of landscape. You certainly have auditory sensitivity, from what I understand, when it comes to
Yeah,
music. Do you visualize emotions and or landscapes while you're writing or trying to make music? How does it work for you?
absolutely. Absolutely. That's the visualization comes from listening though. It's not something that's calculated. It's not something I think of. It's you literally just put the piece of music on. In some cases, you headphones or you put it in a nice volume that it feels good in front of you. You close your eyes and you kind of let the music guide you and take you into that kind of direction. I'll listen to a ballad, for instance, and you're not going to listen to a piece of music that's beautiful or has orchestrations and harps and write about I love evil and so you naturally let the music kind of dictate what the theme is going to be about, what the story is going to be about. With Sons of Apollo, I try to get a little deeper, a little more poetic than I normally would in say my own solo stuff because my solo stuff has got a little more. I want to say a general idea in life that I put behind it. Where Sons of Apollo, I want to go a little more either sci-fi, fantasy land, or even a harder reality of what's going on in the world. So I kind of tap onto those subjects more when it comes to Sons of Apollo and something that's more serious and progressive. On my stuff, I can maybe get a little tongue in cheek. I can maybe write more about a general, like a relationship or something. Maybe you're angry at your boss and you have a little. I always write in double entendre. I like my lyrics to actually mean different things to different people based on who's listening to it.
That being said, do you seek after certain kind of energy that drives the sound of the band?
Um, I mean, I guess in a way it does. I mean, the first Sons of Apollo album, for instance,
Hmm.
we did that together. When the music was done, I actually sat in the same room with Derek and Mike as we were doing the vocals, and they were they were guiding me. They were coming up with suggestions. We were throwing things back and forth at each other. It took me a lot longer to do the album this way because I'm used to exactly as you see where I'm sitting right now. I'm used to people sending me the music, including my own solo stuff. I tune everything and everyone out, and I just concentrate on what I'm doing, and I can knock out a piece of music in the course of a couple hours from writing to finish. But when I'm with others, it takes a little longer because you're trying things. Oh no, change that. Oh, I sang it the wrong way. Oh, I sang a bad note. I don't like the process of doing too many takes, dragging it out too long. I love the spontaneity of when I write something, I'm going to try it. And I want to go over the different changes. I want to go over the different feelings and emotions before anybody hears it. And then once I feel it's as close as I can get it, then I want everybody to listen to it and give me their opinions, and then we can fix and tune things then. So my process is absolutely it's a stronger process when I'm not in the same room with others, working with others, and a producer, or sitting in a room just in a big isolation booth with a microphone, and everybody can see me, but I can't see them.
You're truly passionate. I can see. I've seen it, at least in terms of music and in terms of your vocal abilities. It just gets me awestruck when I listen to you. That being
Thank
said,
you.
yeah. That being said, do you find that music in some ways helps you cultivate the sense of surrender, that of detachment? Because in some ways, during a performance, there's a sense of control, there's decontrol, and yet you're in control. So, could you throw some light on that from a performance point of view? How does it work for you?
I mean, the whole it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about in the studio,
Hmm.
that's obviously you're in complete control because you don't have an audience, you don't have to entertain anybody, you don't even have to be dressed. You could be sitting in your shorts and you can be creative, and you're still in absolute control. When you're on stage, obviously you have all the elements to deal with. You have the sound, you have the audience, you have to entertain. If you're not feeling well vocally, if there's something going on at home or a situation that's in your head, all those little elements you have to kind of tune out. You have to battle to make sure that the audience and you are connected. So when I get on stage, everything shuts off for me. There are times, of course, when, like last 2 years ago, before the lockdowns around the world, we lost one of the greatest athletes of all time, Kobe Bryant. And it happened literally. We played Los Angeles the night before it happened. And then we were in San Francisco. I woke up and I found out he was gone. So the entire day I was just numb. I couldn't believe it. And of course, going on stage, I wanted to address it. I wanted to give a dedication, and certain things you cannot tune out, because clearly when even speaking about it on stage, I was breaking down, and the tears started flowing, and I could feel myself choking up. So there's some things you can't absolutely tune out, but for the most part I try to tune out everything in the world, because my connection with the audience is the most important thing. And of course, I have to remember I have a responsibility to entertain, to sing, remember the words, no, remember the marks when I'm leaving the stage, when I'm coming back on the stage. There's a lot of thought process that comes with trying not to think.
You did mention about an untoward, situation, right? Speaking of that, say if you have a performance at 4 in the evening and you're just sort of prepping yourself up for the entire process, and something untoward happens. How do you deal with such situations? Are you like prone to sort of handle it in any context? How does it work for you?
At this stage, I mean, I've been doing this, as like I said, since I was 18. I'll be 57 in November. So when you think I've been doing this for almost 40 years, at this point you do have a sense of knowing what to do, how to do it. It's something that comes with time and experience. There's no other way about it. There are a lot of people, even at this stage and at this age, they won't know how to navigate out of a situation. They basically will shut down and they have to leave, and show is over. For instance, 2 weeks ago, was it last week? It was last week.
Mm-hmm.
I was performing. I'm doing these acoustic shows with a dear friend of mine, Jason Beeler, from a band called Saigon Kick. We've been
Okay.
doing these acoustic weekend warrior things. Weekend warrior meaning that we get together and we only play on the weekends, and we come home during the week. So instead of being on tour, when you're on tour, you're away from home, you're away from everything and everyone for weeks or maybe months. But we do this weekend out, weekday back. We were doing a show, and 3 songs in, I believe, a woman is frantically telling us to stop playing because there was a medical emergency in the audience. And we stopped, and I looked, and the guy looked like he couldn't breathe. I don't know. We didn't know if he was having a heart attack. We didn't know if he was choking. Thankfully, we had a doctor in the house that was tending to him, but it took a couple minutes to resuscitate, to make him feel like he could breathe again, and feel like he wasn't dying right in front of our eyes. So naturally, you stop and you look at each other and like, okay, how are we going to get out of this? Now, all of a sudden, once this is fixed, we have to now turn it back around and focus the attention on why everybody is here. And that's exactly what you do. You let the situation play out. You try to help if you can, but for the most part, you let nature take its course. And then once everything's okay, thank God the guy survived. Thank God ambulance took him away and everything. But we had to find a way to turn that negative situation back into a positive one for the people that came to see us play. And again, that comes with time, that comes with experience. And luckily I had my partner Jason with me, in terms of my musical partner we were able to do this together. We were able to find a way to it was kind of a kinetic connection that we have to make sure that we know it's time to make the show go on. And we did, and people still had it. Even the doctor was laughing and having a great time once we put the show back on course. So yeah, those kinds of things they do come with experience, and they come with uh, I'm sure there are times you're looking at each other going, oh no, what do I do? I can't do this. And you have a little panic attack and you leave.
In terms of your career, it spanned several many decades. Is there a particular album in which you felt that the artistic vision was there right from the beginning in terms of the musicians you were working with? The second you all got together, there was just sheer bliss at the studio. Did you feel that in any of your albums? Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, the closest that I have to that is my former band Talisman. Talisman was basically born in like late '89, early 1990, and it was meant to just be a project like a lot of things that I've done, but turned into a very long-standing career for me. I believe it was a 19-year run that we had together before we lost our bass player and founder, my dear friend Marcel Jacob. Um, when we started it, it was mainly, like I said, just a studio project. And all of a sudden, we had a lot of traction. We had a big hit in Sweden. We charted with national charts. It wasn't just the rock charts. We charted on the proper Swedish charts, and it started blowing up and started turning into a real thing. So from that was the first real band that I felt that on a professional situation, from the beginning stages to where we actually ended up. That was the only band that we had that sensibility of we're starting from the ground up, and we built everything that we did together. It was the only band I ever created an entire album in the studio. Twice we did it. It was, in terms of we're going in the studio with no ideas and we're going to come out with a finished album. I never did that with any other band. Every other band was you write the songs together, you rehearse them, and then you go to the studio, record them. Or in many cases for me, the bands write the music, they send me the music, I do my stuff at home, and then it's finished. 90% of my career has been like that. So 10% of it is a small percentage of having that experience of creating and living out the music and living out the creation of the music with the band. And that was the only one was with Talisman. We sort of did that with Sons of Apollo, but I don't count Sons of Apollo in that equation, because Sons of Apollo is, in many standards, people call it a supergroup. And as a supergroup, you have different members from different walks of life, from different bands. They've created and they have their images, and the world knows them. So as together, there's an expectation of what we're supposed to do together. So it's not the same thing as building it from the ground up. I know what Bumblefoot's going to bring. I know what Mike Portnoy is going to bring. I know what Billy Sheehan is going to bring. Whereas with a band of guys that are just your friends and you're building something together, we don't know what anybody's going to bring until we bring it.
Sure. Interestingly, we were having some friendly banter this afternoon. We were watching this show where you were doing a couple of interesting renditions. In terms of Sons of Apollo, you did a lovely rendition of "Dream On" in one of your shows. Yeah, it was surreal watching you add in your own flavors in terms of your vocal abilities to it. It was so nice watching you. Yeah.
Well, those flavors that I added were that part of it was that was the second time I ever sang that song in my life, and never sang "Dream On." The first time I ever sang it was the day before when we rehearsed it. I've heard the song a million times. I love that song so much, but I've never sung it. And there's a difference of the connection you have with a song after you've been able to sing it a bunch of times. Because I've been in cover bands before I started with Ingve. I've been in cover bands since. I've done covers. certain songs I've done a billion times, and you have a direct connection with the song by the time you've done it a bunch of times. I had zero connection with the song as a singer because I hadn't sung it until the day before and during that show. And I distinctly remember now that you're bringing it up, as I'm getting to the end, I realized how winded I was because that vocal just never stopped. It's just going on and on. I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And so I was losing my breath, and I had to alter the melody, and I had to change the interpretation a little bit just to get through it. It's exactly one of those things we were talking about earlier, where you're in a panic mode because you normally could and should be able to do something, but when it's not coming out, you have to automatically switch to I'm going to make this work, even if it's not going to be perfect. It's still going to work.
But I just love the whole idea of making it so effortless. I see that in your singing. It was just beautiful,
Oh, thank you, man.
and the power in your voice is just incredible. So what do you do as a part of your practice regime? Do you sort of do something out of the ordinary that a lot of other vocalists don't do to sort of protect your voice?
It's not out of the ordinary. I take all the basic fundamentals of how to protect yourself live, especially on tour.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I learned the hard way because for the first 20 something years of my career, I had no training. I had no idea what I was doing. I just did it. Everything I did was natural. I didn't think about it. For me, it's funny because even up to that point, people were saying, "Hey, you're a great vocalist. You should be a vocal teacher. You should teach lessons." And I'm like, I can't teach what hasn't been taught to me. My class would consist of this. Okay, everybody's in the class. We're gonna sing Africa from Toto. Ready? Press play, and everybody starts singing. That's my course. I don't know how to say, well, you need to breathe in like this. You need to use your voice this way. Oh, that's a little too loud. And use your head voice. I didn't know any of that stuff. So from that, I damaged my voice. By the time I got to 2001, I had a big nodule, vocal nodule in my throat. And I remember my doctor told me, he said, there's only two ways to get rid of it. You either have to do 6 months of silence, no singing, no talking, no coughing, no whispering, just 6 months of silence. It will naturally go away the same way a blister or something on your fingers. It's a little more difficult in the throat. Or we do a very delicate surgery, a throat surgery. But the surgery I had to sign a waiver to basically say the surgery could actually leave you worse than you are right now. Because when you have a nodule, it changes everything on how your voice sounds, your control, your range, everything is really altered. But the doctor said, you might come back 100%, you might come back 80%, you might come back at 15%. There's no guarantee when you're doing such a delicate surgery like this. There was no way I could take that time off. So I had to opt for the surgery, and I did the surgery. And I think after that, I lost a good 30% of my range and the notes and the things I was able to do so effortlessly and so easily before because I was using the wrong technique. So from that, that's when I finally went to professionals. That's when I finally went to get help. And
Mm-hmm.
from that help, I was able to get at least another 15% of my range back in. And I'm still using this technique today, from the technique to the warm-ups, to the sleep, to the hydration. If you're feeling bad, you can take a little ibuprofen for the inflammation, because when you're singing a lot or even talking a lot, the vocal cords get inflamed. So you bring down the inflammation. And one of the key things I found out recently, and I'll share, it's no secret. It's known by a lot of singers. Sugarless gum has glycerin in it.
Okay.
Glycerin is a throat's best friend. If you're chewing gum, even if you're not a singer or a public speaker, if you're chewing sugarless gum, you might even hear there's more clarity in your voice. It's a strange thing because glycerin it's kind of like it acts as kind of like an oil would in a car when you in oil, but the pistons are pumping into a car and they're being lubricated by oil. That's kind of the same idea of glycerin in your throat. So I just practice all of the same things. I make sure I do my vocal warm-ups. I have to rest, no speaking after the shows or no unnecessary speaking after the shows, hydration on stage and off stage. There's so many elements you have to think of that it becomes a routine that you're thinking, oh my God, I have to think of all these things. when you do them long enough, you don't think about them. They become as natural as breathing and talking.
True. I'm quite curious to understand the mental state that you are in during a performance. Being a singer, there are so many different elements that are involved, almost like multitasking of attention. Right? You have to pay heed to your instrumentalist, remember song lyrics, most important of all, and engage with your audience and yet experience creative bliss. Is is that how it is usually for you? Are you lost in detail as to the cues that you'd want to receive in terms of the music for certain musical parts, or are you paying attention to how the audience reacts? How does all of this come together and create that moment of bliss for you?
It's the bottom line is it's the organic feeling that comes from going on stage. It's the side of things that can't control, but you can try to control. But the bottom line is it's yeah, I go into a zone when as soon as the show starts, I go into a zone. I don't think about how much I'm moving. I don't think of how tired I am. I don't think of anything but making sure that I'm 100% concentrating and my attention is in the zone of that moment. Because without that, I can't connect to the audience. I can't connect to the songs. I can't connect to the band. All of those elements have to be all aligned for it to pull it off and make it feel good and make it feel natural. And yes, there are times where you're disconnected for a minute or for a second, you forget a lyric and it gets in your head, and then it's you start overthinking things. But yeah, it's everything's through time, experience, and wisdom that you get from all that experience as you're going through in life to navigate out of a situation, to make sure you stay in that zone. It is it's kind of like when you go to a bowling alley and you see they put the little bumpers so when a child is throwing the ball, it can go, it can hit the sides of the thing, but it's always going to hit the pins when it gets to the end.
True.
When you're on stage, you have to make sure those bumpers are on because you might be hitting the sides until you get to the end game, and that's how I see it. You want to just get to the end game, even if you have a few bumpers along the way.
Yeah, it is filled with a lot of ups and downs, but yeah,
Sure.
you find your way out, like you said, it comes with a lot of experience, indeed.
But that's the best. That's the greatest thing about the live show, the spontaneity. I try my best and I do my best to not be so regimented, so calculated. So everything has to be exactly the same every night. You have to say the same things. You have to do the same routines and same moves. I love spontaneity because I feed off the energy of an audience. I feed off the energy of a band. If the band's not feeling it, I know I got to go into extra drive. I know I got to go into turbo mode because if somebody's tired or sick, I have to make up for that. And if I'm tired or sick, I expect the ones around me to make up for that too. Or even the audience can carry me through a show if I'm feeling like, oh boy, I'm dying up here. I just want to go to bed. I I look forward to the audience helping me through that.
You've definitely been feted with applause from a lot of people across the world. What kind of applause really matters to you, and what applause do you give yourself?
The applause for me is it's a validation. The validation of all this hard work, all this dreaming, all this anticipation of doing what I get to do for a living. I'm really lucky. I'm so humbled by the fact that I'm doing this for as many years, almost 40 years. I'm still out there doing what I'm doing, and there's still an audience. There's still people that want to hear what I'm doing. So that applause to me is the validation that comes from all that work, all those years, all the sacrifices of not being at home and all the things that I've been working inside in my heart, in my mind, as that kid in school. These are my goals. This is where I want to be. I'm not going to stop until I get there. That applause is all of that validation that I finally connected with my music. I finally connected with the people, and that without that validation, it's nothing. It's like you're just sitting in your room creating something that nobody hears and nobody's going to react to. So that I need that. I need that validation because without that validation, you don't know. I don't know how many fans I have in India. I don't know how many people are watching this in your country that know of me and that know of my music. But I'm hoping as people are listening to this and as we're speaking here, that validation is that connection is being validated with the people there as well as whoever is listening around the world. So for me, that it's so important to and applause. It's not meant. It's not taken for me like in an egotistical way. Like I sing a song, I'm expecting you to cheer and applaud. As far as I'm concerned, I'm working for that applause. I'm working for that validation. So when it comes, it means nothing but the world to me.
At this point, what kind of applause would you give yourself in terms of that?
I don't give myself praise or applause. I just exactly what I keep saying. The fact that I'm still here doing what I'm doing, that's the only applause I would give myself in the sense of my hard work and my ambitions and my goals are all being met as far as I was concerned, as far as I was aiming for. So in my head, it's my applause is just the fact that I get to keep doing this. It's not. I don't look at it as as an expectation. It's weird. There are a lot of people that need they need their expectations to be filled. My only expectation is that I did well enough on the last album or the last tour that people want to see me do it again. So that's my applause, I guess.
You're being extremely modest there.
Well, it's again, I'm a human being. I'm just like you. I'm I wake up, I eat, I go to the bathroom, I sleep. I'm no different. I'm not a superhero. I'm not from another planet. I'm not a mutant. I happen to possess a talent that allows me to do what I want to do for my life and with my life. And again, I'm humbled by the fact that I can do that there are people that are allowing me to do that. So I don't take it for granted. I don't look at it as I'm a rock star, I'm a celebrity. I just look at it as I'm very fortunate because there's a lot of other musicians, a lot of other singers that want the same position and they're striving and working just as hard, if not harder than me, to get there. And unfortunately, they never get there, or their dream goes up like a bomb, where I get to keep living my dream. So I never take it for granted, especially now as we're talking about how to keep my voice intact on tour, how to keep it in shape, even if I have to be like a priest where everything is so regimented and I have no fun in my life. I have to do it based on my responsibility and the validation that I get from the crowd.
It's incredible that you worked with so many different artists all the way from your time uh, from Journey. You had a stint at Journey, and then you were part of several other acts like Talisman and then Sons of Apollo. That's a major transition, right, in the kind of music, right? You've seen
Yeah.
many of these artists go through that evolution, right, being part of these acts. You've seen a lot of that evolution happening for them as well as part of their musical pursuits on a personal as well as a musical front, right? How do you support and guide an artist like me who'd come to you to try to develop one's own voice, and for someone who's trying to explore new territory? What would you have to say to people like me?
The only thing I have to say, whether you're naturally gifted, naturally talented, or you had to go to a school or some kind of training or education to get there, the only thing I would tell anybody, and I would say the same thing to the younger me, because I always had the same ideal in my head. If you really want it, you'll get it. You have to stay with it. It might not be overnight. It might not happen in 10 years, 20 years. If you really want it, your persistence and your patience in pursuing your dreams is the only way you're going to get there, because some dreams aren't overnight. There's no such thing as overnight success. There's always a reason or somebody or something or even a cosmic boom in the sky that occurs, that somebody's able to get their dream, make their dream a reality. So I would only say, if you really want it, you stay with it. As soon as you walk away from it because you're giving up, that means you never really wanted it. So everything that happens along that path is up to that person, up to the individual. You work as hard as you need to work to get to achieve and attain those goals. Because if you don't, and nobody's going to come and hand it to you, nobody's going to give it to you. You have to get there on your own, but don't give up on it, because giving up on dreams means you never wanted that dream in the first place.
Sure. I will take that on the in the right stride, and definitely apply it going forward in the musical pursuits
Yeah.
that I have for my near future.
Well, that's great, and I still live by that ideal. I have not made it to the levels that I wanted to be as an artist. My biggest goal and my biggest ambition when I was in school, when I was writing all these different things of this is by this age, by this age, by this age. I'm almost 60 and I'm not at the main objective, which was I want to be headlining arenas or stadiums with my name, with my career, with my writings. I've done all of that with others. For 15 years, I'm doing sold out arenas with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm so blessed to be a part of that. I got to do it for a year with Journey. I got to do it with Yngwie Malmsteen around the world. Certain things that I've done in my life, I've gotten to experience that feeling of playing in front of anywhere from 10,000 to 80,000 people. It's a beautiful experience, but the best experience is when you can go up there with your own music and your own creations and be able to draw those kind of people and those kind of numbers of people that want to see you. And that is still my number one goal at this point. I don't need best-selling albums. I don't need this, that, and the other. I want to be able to play one show in my life that everybody's there to see me sing my songs. And I don't know if I'll ever get there. I'm getting up there in my age, but the other thing I keep in the back of my mind is Tony Bennett didn't become the big sensation that he is now until he was in his 60s. So it might happen.
It will for sure. You're the man on the mission, and we are here to support you and listen to your music throughout.
That's wonderful. And that's all I can ask for. It's the biggest dream for me, the biggest reward. Forget about the boats and the houses and the cars. My biggest reward is I have a connection with the audience. As long as I'm doing this, as long as they're there, I'm here. That's how I see it.
I'm going to get into a slightly sensitive topic. I've been a huge Megadeth fan growing up as a kid. You were supposed to put out some music with David Ellefson at a certain point, which didn't come out because of obvious reasons. How do you respond to a subject like cancel culture? Are you someone who is for it?
I think it's the worst thing that we're dealing with. The whole woke cancel culture thing is the worst thing that can happen to us as a society.
Mhm.
And of course, there are a lot of things in life that have been they're based on mistakes or things that we want to reverse or that we want to forget about. But by completely canceling them, we have no lessons to learn from. By canceling things that happen, by canceling things that people don't want to have as a reality now, we have nothing to learn from that experience because the next generations won't know that existed, won't know the right from wrong of how to actually not get back to that because it already existed, it already happened, and we grew from it. So history is always going to be there, and history should always be there. By canceling it, it's to me, it's silly. It's not necessary. The situation with David, that's his business. I'm his friend. I'm here to support him, and whatever he wants to talk about in his life, it's up to him. It's not up to me to share it or to share my opinion. That's absolutely private situation, and I stay away from any of that kind of stuff. But just to remind you, or just to actually add to what you were saying, that album is coming out. It's coming out this year. Just because we haven't had the proper press release yet, we're not really talking about it because I don't want to downplay what the label is doing, but it is actually happening. We're moving forward with it, and I'm very happy with the results. I talk to David all the time. He's a very dear friend. He's become a dear friend. Before we were just acquaintances, but because obviously music brings people together, and that's exactly what it did for us. We are pursuing this, and there's going to be some future with David, and I love the guy. He's a great human being. He's got a great soul, and he's just one of those people that is a joy to be around and have as a friend. So going back to what you said about the whole woke cancel culture thing, I personally think it's a foolish decision to keep trying to erase things that happen, because things in life that we regret or things that happened are things we need to learn from. And we're not going to be able to learn from things that are just completely deleted in life.
We're really looking forward to hear that. When is it going to be out?
Well, I can't get into the parameters and details.
All right.
The press release will come out soon, but let's just say this year. And that's I'll leave it at that.
Sounds
All the
good.
details are coming soon.
Sounds good. There's this popular notion of what precedes what. Is it the chicken or the egg? And in terms of music, you are portraying an emotion. Is it the internalization of a mood that expresses itself in your music, or is it the music inducing internally within you? How does that sort of a relationship work for you?
Well, it definitely has to start with the egg for me in pretty much all circumstances, because I don't write anything, especially deep or emotional or something that might actually give a message. I can't write that kind of stuff until I get the egg first, until I get the music, because the music, as I said earlier, dictates what direction the melodies, the lyrics, the theme is going to be heading towards. So it's always the egg before the chicken for me. I need the inspiration of the music to tell me what's going to happen. I need to hear the piece of music, because that's where my emotion is drawn from. Whether it's going to be a silly lyric, a comedy lyric, or something that's really deep and dark and emotional, you have to let the music connect with you and dictate from that. If I'm just sitting in a room and I try to write something that means something really deep and heavy for me, I don't know how I could put that to a piece of music later after that piece is done, because I didn't draw from the actual song. I didn't draw from a musical piece. I don't know how Bernie Taupin and Elton John made an amazing career together from that, because Bernie wrote all those lyrics. He wrote, and Elton took care of all the music. So Bernie could send lyrics without any music, and Elton could write a song behind that. That to me is the most incredible. To actually do the chicken before the egg, it's incredible to me. That's he made an amazing career out of that. I don't think I could do that. I think in my life I've tried, out of the almost 900 songs that I've been part of in writing and creating, I think I've done it twice where I've actually written the lyric before the music, and there's a disconnect as far as I'm concerned, because the music has to dictate what the melodies and the lyrics are going to be about. That's just the way it works for me.
We have a lot of fans from India who've tuned in and from other parts of the world, of course. They are curious to know, is there a favorite live experience that you've had, maybe a story or an anecdote that you'd like to share with them? I'm sure there are a lot, but something that's stood out as part of your experience.
I have two. I'll try to make it brief.
Mhm.
Two. One is on the what's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to me on a stage, and what's the most majestic thing. I'll go with the embarrassing one. It's as a child, my biggest dreams and part of my little fantasy that I was writing down of where I wanted to headline and play around the world. I had Madison Square Garden in New York City. I had Wembley Arena, or I'm sorry, Wembley Stadium as
Mhm.
part of my wish list. And I want to play at the Hollywood Bowl. I haven't played the other two, but I finally got to the Hollywood Bowl with Journey in 2006. My family, my mother, my friends were out there. Everybody I wanted to be there. Was the biggest dream of mine coming true. And that day, and it never rains in California, as they say. It rarely ever rains in Southern California, in Los Angeles. We had rain all day that day. And during the setup, during the crew setting up the stage, we were on tour with Def Leppard, and Def Leppard had this kind of surface on the stage. It's a really cool surface because it had their logo. If you look from above, it had a cool pattern and everything. But the material on that surface, if you drop even a speck of water, it becomes like an ice skating rink. Even a little bit of water, if you step on it accidentally, you're going to feel your feet falling from under you. This day, that entire thing, the crew was they were using the squeegee and the mops to try and keep it dry as much as possible. And they warned us, before you go on stage, be very careful, because it literally is like it's a hazard to get out there. I thought, I can't be so bad. It wasn't raining when we went on stage, but it was still a bit wet in some areas. And I remember the show starting, and literally as I stepped onto the platform, barely just took 2 steps, I could feel my feet slipping. Oh my God, this is going to be the worst. So I slowly make my way to the microphone, and I'm thinking, finally, I'm at the Hollywood Bowl in front of all my people, my family, 19,000 people or whatever it was that came to the show. And I have to stand there like a statue because I don't want to fall down. We did the first song, and I was almost almost a statue the entire time. And then I'm like, okay, I need to pump up. I'm getting so energized. So I walked over the monitors that had two little wedges at the end of this surface. And if you walk over them, you had the surface of the Hollywood Bowl, the regular surface of the stage. When I stepped there, I'm like, oh, this is great. There's no slippery. I could do what I need to do. But after that song, I'm like, oh, I need a drink of water. I need to spray with this singer spray that I have on the drum riser.
Yeah,
So
I've
I
seen that.
slowly and carefully stepped over the monitors. As soon as I got my second foot over, boom, I was on my ass. I literally fell on my ass in front of 19,000 people on the second song. And you again, your mind is racing. Split second decision. What do I do? Do I show everybody how embarrassed I am? And I go, oh no, and just kind of put my head down low, my tail between my legs. So, or do I own it? And I went with split second decision, stand up and just go, yes, I fell down at the Hollywood Bowl. And that's what I did. And everybody cheered. They loved that I was sharing this embarrassing moment with them instead of trying to hide it. So that was my dream come true, turned into my biggest nightmare, but I turned it around and made it a victory.
Where can I find the
The
DVD? Can I find the DVD of that particular concert? What is it called?
I don't think anybody. I haven't seen anything on YouTube. There's a
All
few
right.
little mini clips from that show, but and to get through the rest of the show,
Uh-huh.
I realized I said my shoes are so slippery. I can't do anything on that stage. So I literally, after I fell down, I took my shoes off. All of a sudden, my socks and the wetness had almost like a rubber traction. I did the
Right.
entire show wearing socks. If you find anything, you're probably going to see just I'm wearing socks, white socks. By the time I got to the end of the show, they were so black and just horrible. I had to just throw them away. Of course, there was no cleaning them, but that's the way I got through that show because I did the entire thing with no socks on, and I could jump around and do everything I wanted to do when I realized it was the shoes that were the problem. So now going back to the other one, the most majestic thing that I'll never ever forget for the rest of my life is with Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they were doing a Sabotage reunion / Trans-Siberian show at the Wacken Festival in Germany. Wacken is the biggest metal festival in the world.
Sure.
And I remember Paul O'Neill, rest his soul, telling all of us that we're going to do something that's never been done in history before. And even Paul took me aside and he said, Jeff, you have to remember this. When the Beatles did their last performance up on the roof, they were the first ones to do something like that. And anybody that does it afterwards, U2 did a video where they were on top of the roof. Anyone that does it after that is always going to be compared to the Beatles because they were the first. What we're doing at the Wacken Festival is we're taking both main stages and we're going to be doing one performance utilizing two stages. No one's ever done it before. No one's done it since. And one of the main reasons was Wacken is a small village in Germany. The power is just enough to power up one stage for one performance while the other band is getting ready on the other main stage when they're done. And the people basically stay in, where they are, and they could see both shows as they're going back and forth, as the bands are changing. We were using both stages at the same time to the point where Paul had to actually hire in his own power sources to power the second stage. It was unbelievable. He said, we have to do this and it has to be done right. So you imagine TSO is already a spectacle that you've never seen in your life before already visually, with the pyro, with the lasers, with the lights. It's unbelievable to see this show. But to see two stages doing it at the same time was something I'll never, ever forget. It's probably one of the first times in a long time that I was actually nervous because when you have so many different moving parts, so many things can actually go wrong. The more you have, the more it can go wrong. That's the old term in this business. So it was nerve-wracking. I remember our musical director Al Petrelli going, "Dude, I need a shot of whiskey right now," because he was running the entire show, and I've never seen grace under pressure more than watching Al pull off that performance that night. And it was one of the most amazing things for us to play in front of 80,000 people, two stages simultaneously, two bands, two full bands with two orchestras, 20 singers. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. You can find some footage on YouTube for that, but Trans-Siberian Orchestra don't release live DVDs of performances because they are strict believers on You cannot download, you cannot watch that experience on a little box, on a even a big box. You need to actually be there to experience that. And so they don't want to lessen or cheapen the idea of what Trans-Siberian Orchestra stands for. They want to make sure if you know of this and you want to see something that's going to blow your mind, that you come to see it as opposed to just watching it on YouTube or on a DVD.
Well, I guess then we should bring you guys down to India and have an actual live experience. I think that's the
You
best
know what?
possible way.
This is the best part of what I do for a living. The fact that I get to travel around the world and see so many different cultures and meet so many people, and that this is the greatest gift that comes with doing what I do for a living. But unfortunately, I've never been to India. I'm hoping even something as like this that we're doing is going to maybe open up some channels and
For
open up
sure.
some interest.
For
I
sure.
know Bumblefoot has been there a bunch of times. He said some amazing things about his travels and his visits there. So of course I'm jealous, and I would love to get there sometime soon.
We'd love to host you in our country too. Right. So
Fantastic.
given
Well,
the pandemic situation gets better, we'll definitely work
yeah.
something out.
Well, Aditya, I'm holding you accountable. You're the one that's
Sure.
got to get me there.
For sure. For sure. It'd be an absolute pleasure to have you in my country.
It would be a pleasure to finally visit. Yes.
You've crossed so many different milestones in your career, working with some of the finest musicians in the industry, right? With artists of that caliber, and your perspective of being a musician, Cat's at that level, right? At the pinnacle of musical success. What do they look for in artists in terms of musical sensibilities? What did they find in you that they didn't find in other artists?
One of the greatest things I ever heard Mike Portnoy say about me, and it's I again validation from my peers and my colleagues and the people I work with is just as important as it is for the audiences around the world. One of the greatest things that Mike ever said in an interview once, and maybe he said it a few times, is that I bring soul, I bring R&B and kind of a soulful um, delivery to prog music, to what Sons of Apollo do. And I never thought about it. I never thought that there's not really that much soul in terms of like an R&B soulful kind of singer or delivery in this style of music. It's just in my DNA because I grew up with Sam Cooke and the Temptations and Motown and Jackson 5, Little Michael Jackson, all that stuff was injected into me way before rock. And I still listen to that music. I still listen to R&B and soul music and pop music because that's what I loved as a kid. And then rock started slowly seeping in, and then I was always finding a way to morph the two situations, to morph to be able to bring in the soulful delivery into rock and vice versa, bring into the rock thing into a soulful delivery. And to me, that's the most important thing, is that you're able to carry forward your own DNA as opposed to trying to stick with one thing and putting the blinders on. Oh, I better not show any soul or any kind of R&B background on this song because it doesn't work in this world. Of course, it works in this world. There's always the marriage of different cultures and different styles in music, and that to me was the most important thing that I made sure people knew of me as a singer. So hearing Mike say that without us having this discussion, without me saying, hey, when we start writing songs for Sons of Apollo, I want to make sure that I can put forth my soulful side, my R&B roots have to, and we never discuss it. It's just there. It just happens. It happens when we write. It happens when I create with the guys and we do our music. And it's something I don't think about, but to have actually hear somebody bring it out and say that, like, wow, I never thought about that, but it's absolutely true. And that to me is the most important part of what I get to do, is that I get to do it under the terms of everything that influenced me in life.
Lovely. It's beautiful. I mean, all your stories and the inspiration that you draw from it. It's just like a movie. This is a sequence of events.
Hey man, you know what? This is a movie. This is my movie. This is something I get to live and something I get to experience. And yeah, it is a dream in a lot of things, but in the reality, this is my job. This is my responsibility. This is something that I worked for and longed for, and I still have that hunger and that desire to do it. There's nothing. It's not like okay, I've been there, done that. Now I'm just going to go on autopilot. Oh, we have a tour here, show there. Okay, no problem. I put the same effort, the same excitement and enthusiasm with everything that I do, because to me, I'm still living that dream.
Wonderful. We'll slightly move to a little more interesting segment as part of our agenda today. I'm going to give you some concise questions. You'll have to be spontaneous with your answers. You can't think a lot, right? So I have some interesting
I love
questions.
this.
Yeah, I have some interesting questions for you. What is your idea of an all-star metal group? Who would be in it, dead or alive?
Derek Sherinian, Mike Portnoy, Billy Sheehan, and Bumblefoot.
And
That's the easy one.
Who'd be singing? Who'd be singing in it?
Who do you think? No, I'm asked that question. So I used to have different answers back in the day, but ever since joining up with Sons of Apollo, that's my answer. My dream team band, the people that I would want to surround myself with in a situation is Sons of Apollo. That's my dream band.
Lovely. What is that one song that always makes you cry?
The one song that makes me cry. Oh boy. I think In My Life from the Beatles. It's a song that I actually want that song played at my funeral, because it's such a beautiful, haunting melody. The lyrics, everything about that song touches me in a way that there are a lot of songs that get me there, but that one just emotionally just makes me, I have a lump in my throat every time I hear it.
On the contrary, what is your favorite guilty pleasure song?
Oh boy. Favorite guilty. Yeah. Now you're making me think, because I have so many. There's a very strange Prince song on his Around the World in a Day album called Tambourine. It's very strange. It's very it's eclectic, because there's no real structure. There's no commercial value. He's screaming, he's singing out of key. There's no music. It's just like a strange drum beat with strange sounds going on underneath it. And anybody I play that song to go, what are you listening to? And I think that was Prince's intent on that song. That's my guilty pleasure song, Tambourine.
If you could be other things apart from being a musician, what might you be?
Dead. There's nothing else. There really is nothing else. I have no interest in anything else in life than what I get to do, or something within the musical field, whether it be producing or songwriting for others, or maybe even managing bands, or just coordinating shows. I have to be involved in music and in this business in some capacity. I can't imagine anything else but what I get to do for a living.
Lovely. In the interest of time, I have one last question for you. This is a custom in all my interviews. It's my favorite question to all of you. Down in the distant horizon, what would you want to be remembered as?
Wow. It's a stacked question. And for, like you said, for the interest of time, I don't want to give a long answer. I want to give a pretty concise, specific answer. I just want to be remembered for being authentic and contributing, leaving my own contribution to music in society. That's all I care about. I want to be talked about for hundreds of years to come as somebody who really, really strived and did his best musically to leave a mark in this world. That's it. There's nothing more I can say about that.
Lovely. As we continue to celebrate a dozen marvelous musical pieces and the showmanship that you've displayed in terms of your vocal abilities, you have sort of made it a very rich, intense life that all of us sought to await, right? Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for your music. This interview is also going to be part of my all-new audio podcast, Stalwarts in Music with Aditya Veera. And this is also going to be aired in two incredible radio stations in India, Big FM Shillong and Aizawl. They cater to a lot of incredible English music in different spaces. Of course, heavy metal and rock are, some of their main interests. for the people out there. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Before we conclude, I'd like you to give a concluding note for the people of India who are listening to this interview.
I said it already. I have an absolute bucket list dream of finally playing in India. I don't care where, I don't care how, but it's. I've seen some of the reactions around the world. I'm sorry, not around the world, but I've seen a lot of reactions on YouTube's different platforms of shows and appearances and performances in certain places in India, and it looks like it would be such an amazing time for me to be able to do what I do there. So I'm hoping and I'm praying that someday I get to show you what I get to do live in front of you, and you get to show me your reaction of what that you appreciate, that you like what I'm doing. That's my biggest wish and my dream for anybody that's been following me for the past decades or just started following me recently. I really hope to come and see you soon and visit in person and meet a lot of you and just feel like now we have a personal connection finally.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for tuning in. It's been a great blessing, honor, and a privilege. Do stay in touch, and I'd be more than happy to host you in my country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You're going to be the first one I meet at the airport when I land.
It'd be an absolute pleasure to do so.
All the best, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff. Take care. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. All right. Bye-bye.